Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Eddie Marcus here again. Think on this, if you will. A little earlier today, something crossed my mind. I guess I was listening to some of the brothers who are very well renowned for speaking about the black community. And it was a powerful, powerful speeches that I was hearing. But later on, I started thinking about, I'm an elder now, if not in wisdom, definitely in age, but I'd like to think wisdom as well. And so I was thinking, there was a time when the Muslim movement under Elijah Muhammad was flowing well here in the USA. And I was just thinking about how they were all identified. The message about Islam, it was a different message. The message about God and Allah, should I say Allah. It was a sweet message, but there was a little bit of difference in it. And I was thinking, why was that message allowed to advance, to go forward? And as I thought about that, I reflected on what was obvious, what you could see. You know, those who adhere to their faith, they usually wore their garb so you could identify them. They were letting you know who they were. And they had their space and they had their businesses that they were working and developing and promoting. And this was all good, I suppose. Nevertheless, the most damaging thing or truthful thing, wherever you fall on that side, was the message that white people were devils. They didn't bite their tongue about that. And yet they were able to advance. And I'm asking myself, what was this all about? And as I think about it, it appeared to me as though it was a plan, it was a plot of the system. It would, because what it actually did, it played into that division. It separated black people from white people. It kept them apart. It made white people not want to be even associated with someone black that was calling them a devil. And if black people were being taught that white people were devils, they didn't want to have anything to do with them. And yet this movement was able to progress and stay alive. I thought about it, and I thought about the money that came in that was used for whatever money is used for. I'm not condemning that. I'm thinking about all of the things that probably went on the table, and I'm not going to go under that table because I don't know what was under there, and it might be something biting my head off. So I'm not going to go under that table. However, I am reminded that there was a man that came along who accepted the philosophy, who accepted the doctrines, all of it, and even the leadership of the movement. And he promoted the movement. The movement began to spread and advance until something happened. That individual was Malcolm X. And Malcolm X started speaking a little bit different than what was the original conversation. He even made a statement about the chickens coming home to roost, having to do with the assassination of John F. Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy. And I'm reminded back in those days, it's been quite a few years ago now, that Elijah didn't like that. In fact, he denounced it and made a statement out to the country that Malcolm was not speaking for the movement. He was speaking on his own accord. And in fact, they want to sit him down until he kind of get it together, kind of horn in that spirit that was moving him in the direction in which it was moving him. And I didn't see Malcolm kind of acquiescing to any of their demands. And you know the end of that story. Pretty soon, Malcolm was killed. I'm thinking about there could have been a lot of people before Malcolm was killed who were Muslims. I didn't really do any deep research into that. You all have the liberty to do that if you'd like. But I'm amazed that even after that time, Malcolm gone, and I'm not hearing anything about the movement really beyond what it had already heard, and it started getting quiet. But Malcolm had touched on something that was a little bit different that I perceive as that system that had allowed the Muslim movement, the Islamic movement here in America, besides Christianity, allowed it to exist, was kind of pissed off now because something had stepped out of the ordinary of that which they were allowing to happen. And so this has something to do with the eradication of the life of Malcolm X. Yeah, have you ever thought about that? Well, the thing I think that really made me come to that thought is that I was watching something else on YouTube, and it reminded me of another gentleman that I had been listening to some time ago. And I ran across a presentation where he had made some on Phil Donahue, some heavy, heavy statements. Now, Malcolm had been replaced by Louis Farrakhan. And for those of you who listen to Louis Farrakhan can tell you some information. I mean, some education. The young man bring that history out, explain all kinds of things to the black people and to the American people at large. I mean, it's deep, deep stuff that the average black person doesn't even think about, let alone going doing research to find out about. And yet, at the same time, that movement was able to move on along just as it did under Elijah Muhammad. There did not seem to be any indication to me that back in that day when Elijah was running and that Malcolm was a part of it, that Elijah was suffering for any of the economic goods. He might have been, but it didn't appear to an average, what you call Baptist, Methodist person, black out there. And now I'm thinking about this thing seeming to have a repeat, because Farrakhan seems to be doing good. His suits look good. His hair is combed and face washed. His might have manicure, I don't know. But it doesn't seem to be suffering from too much anything. The only time that I was really disappointed is that once I was in Chicago and went to the final call, I went to a hall for just to check it out, and I had to go through all of these searches. I'm a person who never went into anything related to God that I had to be searched. But anyway, I put up with it and felt that I probably wouldn't be going back again, because that belittled me. We as a Christian didn't have to do that. And so this is Farrakhan's movement. But then one day, all of a sudden, there was a brother by the name of Khalid Muhammad. Kind of remind you a little bit of Malcolm. His conversation was a little bit different than that of Farrakhan. However, he did say a lot of things that Farrakhan talked about. But he seemed to get a little bit deeper. His footprint seemed to be a little bit heavier. And I recognized somewhere in that observation that he said some things that was taken back to Farrakhan, and I heard Farrakhan admonishing this young man the same way that Elijah admonished Malcolm. Now, a little bit after then, and sometime after then, I don't know how long, but after that, I hear that Khalid Muhammad, is killed. So I'm asking myself, wait a minute, what's going on? What's going on? You can separate people with your conversation. You could do a lot of things against the country that had to do with division and not bringing people together. But when you start stepping on some other truths, because Malcolm said what he was saying was absolute truth, Khalid was saying what he was saying was absolute truth, but it was something that was not being said before. And now it's being said. And that being the case, all of a sudden, these people are dying. So, it would make one think that there's a strategy that's set up by the higher power working a scam with the lower power. Now, am I saying that the Muslim movement back in that day and in this day is just a scam? I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. But it just didn't stop there. I'm also reminded that on the other side, not just Islam or Muslim, it also had some strange effect in the Christian community. I know there were Christian brothers out there talking Christianity, and they really didn't talk too much about division. No, they didn't do that. Because their understanding, I believe, of Christianity came right out of the slave master's mouth. And they were sticking to it. But something did happen. There were a few people who talked against some of the things that were going on. And it still was allowed to exist. However, somewhere down the line, there was another young man came out. And his conversation was speaking strictly of love, strictly of God and what God was about. It also talked about the system, the Constitution, the laws that had been set up to protect people. In fact, the motivation of Dr. Martin Luther King might have been a spiritual one based upon his relationship with God and Jesus Christ being the example. But there were some other realities that he had to deal with. Voting, black people being treated less than human. And that caused a different type of attitude. That called for a different type of response from the public than what had been happening before. Now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, or should I say not out of nowhere, it was planned, it was scammed, just like the things that had been happening in the past. And this young brother who was speaking about love, about Christ and God and justice, was terminated from this life. Terminated from this life. And I'm reminded as I look back over these events, I'm reminded that after Malcolm was killed, people kept on talking about Allah and the Quran and what it all meant. Now, there might have been some more killed since then, but I don't know anything about it. I'm not trying to say that it didn't happen. I just don't know anything about it. And I'm thinking about after King was eliminated from the scene, I'm thinking about the other preachers who were renowned, as it were, like the Jacksons and the Andrews and Sharptons and many others. These guys are still around there doing their thing. But nothing that they are doing, even after running for president of the United States, a couple of them, ever got them in a situation that their lives were to be eliminated. Maybe they didn't talk that division stuff enough. Maybe they talked about unity. I don't know, whatever it was, they're still here. But those people who were talking about something that would affect change, not for just for themselves, not that they themselves could be looking good, that they got money to pay their bills, that they got a nice place to live, or got the associations around them. I'm seeing they're just here. Hot air. So that seems to play into something bigger than just an ordinary man being raised up, called to do a duty, unless that duty is of the system. It definitely could not be of God, because those who seem to have been working for God that would cause change, the system wasn't having that. And when I say system, I'm talking about the evil one. The evil one was not having that. That was too good, and it had to go. It almost makes it seem like what Elijah was talking about, what Farrakhan is talking about, what Jesse Jackson and all these other guys are talking about. It seems like milk lukewarm water, because no change is coming about. And I don't know if they're living good. I don't know. I know one thing, they're living, and nobody's talking about killing them. So it makes me wonder. So I thought I'd just ask you, what do you think about that? What do you think is going on? Now, I'm not trying to start no stuff. All I want you to do is think about it. And one last thing I'd like to mention before I close here. There was another young man in another land. His name was, you know the name. What is that name? Mandela. Yes, Mandela. Now, Mandela stood initially in the beginning. I mean, he was heavy on the foot, moving on the foot, speaking justice to the power, speaking truth to power. But they locked him up. They didn't kill him. They locked him up for about 27 years, thereabouts. And then one day he was allowed to come out of that prison, not just to go back to the hooch that he might have been living in before, but to the presidential establishment. This man who had struggled so hard, who had given his life to the cause, who had served time to let the world know how genuine his mission and he as the promoter of it is. And now they let him out, put him in a position of power. But the people that he spoke for were still living in shanty towns and shacks and tin tops. I didn't see too much stuff changing there. And I noticed he got a chance to live probably quite a long time. But one day he eventually passed along. And what's going on in South Africa now? Well, it's just like what's going on with Christianity in America. It's just another day. And everything is getting worse and worse in the world. So ladies and gentlemen, if you can get anything out of this, please respond to this video. Maybe you can help me, because it appears to me as though the powers that's greater than human power is calling on somebody to do something that serves the power of the power that would benefit the people, because the people today are not being benefited at all over the world. It seems that evil is just choking the life out of people, and it has a big foot, and it's coming down heavy on everybody, even those who are not saying anything, who are just there accepting it. I mean, the foot is so heavy till if you start getting on a knee at a football game, they want to cut your head off. Well, I want to leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you so very much for spending just this moment in time with this message. And if you will, please respond. This is Eddie Marcus. Goodbye.